And now, coming to you live from the City of Angels, Los Angeles, California, it's the Sheena Metal Experience with your host, Sheena Metal, only on KGRA Digital Broadcasting.
Hi, and welcome to the Sheena Metal Experience. Every Friday at 3 o'clock Pacific time on KGRA Digital Broadcasting. I'm Sheena Metal. I'm a psychic medium. I'm an interfaith minister. I'm a 27-year talk radio host coming to you live every week from Los Angeles, California, my home. This show is about humanity. It's about spirituality. It's about creativity. It's about passion. And it's about service. It's about being your best you and inspiring others to do the same in this big, beautiful world that we call the Earth. It may be my show every week, my friends, but it is always, most definitely, your experience. My guest today is a wonderfully talented artist, a fantastic creative being, an amazing bass player, and also a wonderful spiritual being, and a person that I am so proud to call my friend. Please welcome to the Sheena Metal Experience, the wonderful Rudy Sarzo is here. How are you, darling? It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. Wow, it's been a while.
It's been a while, right?
Yeah.
For everybody.
Yeah.
I've known you for so many years, and you've done my shows many times, and we've talked about creativity and art and humanity and giving back. And then somewhere along the line, I realized how spiritual you were and how, like me, your spirituality really drives your art. And then we started talking about spiritual things on our show. And this show is where I really wanted to bring together my artistic world, my entertainment world, and my spiritual world. And so you're a perfect fit for that, my friends. So have you always known that your spirituality sort of drove the ship of everything you were, including your art?
Well, as a kid, as a child, I had some inclination that there was something more to life than everything that was going on around me. You know, I had a lot of questions when I was little. And of course, you know, typical answers from adults were like, you know, you're too young.
Right, exactly, right.
Questions.
Sure.
And you know, you'll find out someday, you know, things like that. I'm not just talking about my parents in general, because I'm talking about, you know, teachers and so on who were more, you know, because, you know, when you're a kid, you really spend more time at school than you do at home awake.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
You get up in the morning, you got breakfast, you're off to school, right? You're there from like, you know, and then school ends about 3 or 4, and then after school activities. And then by the time you get home for dinner, you spend a few hours with your parents. Your parents are tired because they've been working all day. And so maybe you spend 2 or 3 hours with them. You know,
right.
But in school, you got your teachers right there, right in front of you. And you know, and so it was always about that. It was always about, I got questions here, but there's no answers. But thank God for social media. And I'm talking about the, let's say YouTube, right. And then certain sites that I find from YouTube and take me to other places. And now I got all the answers. I got resources now that I never had before.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? I was very fortunate that my mother was extremely spiritual and was always a seeker. So I knew that I could go to her and ask anything. It's funny because when I was in my early 20s, I was dating a guy who had done a lot of, mushrooms and psychedelics. And as you know, I never did any of that stuff. I've never touched a drink or touched alcohol in my life. I'm one of those weirdos. And he said to me once, how did you come to the answers to all these spiritual questions without psychedelics? And I said, well, I grew up in a house where it was okay to ask. So when I had a question, I asked, and I was very fortunate to have grown up in that world. But, you know, my girlfriend has 3 kids, and her daughter is 18 and is a super seeker and is going to be is a brilliant light worker and very, very gifted. And yeah, they sit there and they go to YouTube, they go to Google, and their answers for everything they're seeking. And I think that is such a magic thing now for everybody, especially the younger generation coming up, right? Who, especially if you grow up in a place where maybe your family doesn't believe like you do, or you have questions they can't answer. There's a place to find other like-minded people that feel like you do about spirituality.
Yeah, I can't expect people near me, my family, the family that I was born into, or the
Sure.
family that I created, with my wife, or my musical family, which is the misfits that we pick to play in a band with, that's a family.
Sure, that's a family.
It took me years to realize that just because I happen to experience the same with a relative growing up, that we're going to have the same perception about life.
Yes.
Because I used to get really upset. Like, how come you don't feel or see things my way, even though we went through certain experiences, and it was like, well, wait a minute, we're all different. I mean, we each occupy a space in space,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
it's our perception or point of view from that place that we happen to be in, that we see through our eyes, and then in addition to that's the outer, then you have the inner voice. I've been reading a lot of Don Miguel Ruiz, and
the Four Agreements.
Yeah, he's got a series of books, and one of the ones that I'm just about to finish is The Voice of Knowledge, and he talks about that, about who we really are as human beings, as through once we're born and we're a baby, we're like a clean slate. That's as real as we're gonna get, and then we get bombarded by how our story should be like according to what the people that we run into in our lives. It could be our family, extended family, or it could be teachers that we go to school and our parents trust this school that their children are, like me, my parents trusted my school that I was going to be taught the right things, the right perception, and so our whole life is full of that. And then at the end, we lose touch with who we really are as humans, that clean slate, that purity, the essence that we had when we were born, and then we have the voice in our head, I used to think that since there's a thought that came to me, that it was the correct advice that I was getting from my thought. Now I take the time to meditate. And when I say meditate, is I become familiar with the decision that I must make, which is what meditation means, to become familiar with. And I used to, like, somebody would offer me something like a gig or audition or something, and I would go immediately. I would say, "Oh no, thank you. I'm doing something else." Now I think about it. I think about, well, I'm doing something else, but maybe we can still make this work.
Yeah.
And I meditated. How is it going to affect me? How is it going to affect everybody that I am involved with? How am I going to fit into this new or extra situation that I'm being offered? Right. So I am so different now than I was maybe even a couple of years ago. Once we were locked down and we had this almost going back to school.
Yeah.
For those who have physically, medically survived the pandemic,
Right. Yes. Yeah. It's interesting. I talk about this a lot in my spiritual work, how when we're born, right? Because I like to think of every incarnation as sort of like a semester of school, right? It's like a semester of soul school.
Yeah.
When we come here as babies, we are, like you said, we're the closest to how we are when we're home. We're the most spiritual that we are. And we have everything, right? We see spirits, we see what my mom used to call beings from the fairy garden. We have all our psychic abilities. We have intuition and empathy. And then human beings kind of tell us, nah, that's not happening, and that's not real, and that's not going on. And then when we start to become enlightened on our spiritual path, at whatever age it happens to us, it's like an unlearning, right? We have to unravel the layers of everything the earth has sort of placed on top of us. And by the earth, I mean humanity, and find our way back to who we really were when we were that pure soul that came here. And it's a beautiful journey, but it's a journey, right? It's like so much of it is, it's like they always say, right? You spend the first 50 years of your life accumulating things in your house and the next 50 years getting rid of it. I think it's the same kind of thing. We spend so much time accumulating all this like spiritual and emotional stuff, and then we have to work through it and get rid of a lot of it. And I think this time of quarantine, I don't know about you, but I haven't spent this much time at home since I was probably 14 years old. And I didn't even realize how much I needed it until it happened. And I think for those of us who have been fortunate enough to survive COVID and to be here, and we're very lucky to be here every day. And having had COVID, I'm so thankful that I am still here. It's kind of been like a time for us, like free time to just like to go to a retreat center, almost a spiritual retreat center, and work on yourself. But we get to do it at home. And I think a lot of people have realized, Rudy, during this time, what's really important to them, right? Because we're really understanding what is important and what are our priorities. It's been so much that way for me. Has it been that way for you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's so many questions that I address. I still do, because the answer is in the journey.
Yes.
So it's not like I'm going to get the answer right now, because then that would mean that the journey is over. And as long as I'm still on my journey, there will be more revelations to the answer that I seek. You know, one of the big ones that I had, I would say the major one, was actually God's will. What does God will, from my own perception, really means to me? You know, means to me as far as, you know, I mean, there's certain things that I've changed in my life years ago, but I still did not have the answer as to why did I change it? I mean, what's the real meaning? For example, I quit drinking almost 25 years ago, 24 and a half years ago, I quit drinking. But
you were young when you quit.
Well, yeah, I was like 40 something, you know. I mean, I was younger than I am now.
Right. Right.
I was 24 years younger. Yeah. Yeah. But, you know, I quit drinking, but then again, I just thought that I was a guy who quit drinking. I didn't realize that, you know, there were certain qualities about me that made me enjoy drinking. Not a whole lot, but enough to affect me, to change me, you know. And, you know, and then, of course, you know, about a year and a half ago, I joined AA, and, you know, there's certain answers that I got about that. And one of them, you know, it was one of the things that I was struggling with. How come in the Bible, there's so much reference as to drinking, you know?
Yes.
And so it's like, you know, is it okay with God for me to drink? And I'm going like, then I came to my realization, my perception of that is, first of all, I am not Jesus. You know, I cannot hold a drinking contest with Jesus. I couldn't even hold a drinking contest with Ozzy. So Jesus wants to drink. The stories in the Bible about him drinking, that's fine. It has nothing to do with it.
But could Jesus, Rudy, could Jesus hold a drinking contest with Ozzy? I mean, I think that's the real question, right?
Easy. Yeah. Because I've seen Ozzy passed out, and there's never been in the Bible anything about Jesus being passed out.
He just kept turning more water into wine and just kept going.
Yeah. Well, you know, this is really interesting about that passage in the Bible, because immediately when I started thinking about that, I went and I reread it. I read the Bible every day. And but that's one of those things that I kind of like skimmed over, and I'm going to say, well, you know what, let me go back and really study that passage. I think it's John 5, John 5 or something like that. Or is that's my old guitar player, John 5. It's in there. Okay, so it's actually the first miracle that he did, and it was because his mom, they were at a wedding. You know the story. But anyways,
Sure.
they were at a wedding, but nowhere in the passage in the Bible does Jesus said, I have turned this into wine. He just says, bring me water in pitchers, big vase to hold the water, and he blesses the water, and he tells the servant, he tells him, go and serve this. He doesn't say this is the new wine, right? There's no mention from him that I've turned this into wine. And I'm thinking, you know what? If I'm going to drink water that has been blessed by Jesus, I'm going to catch the biggest buzz I've ever had in my whole life. So people thought, in my story, and from reading that, my interpretation is, oh, Jesus he blessed this water. People start drinking and they go, this is amazing. I love this. This is the best wine I've ever had.
Right.
Check it out.
Well, but that's sort of that's the true definition of a miracle, right? I mean, if you can influence people into feeling good with whatever it is you've got, that is a miracle. And it doesn't have to be the thing. And I say that all the time. People talk a lot about, well, how do you know that spiritual healing is real? How do you know that a healer is really helping? Here's the thing. If you go and see a spiritual practitioner to get a healing, to get advice, to get, cupping done, whatever it is, if you are feeling good afterwards, if it moved you to go on in your life and feel better, then that's a fantastic thing. Maybe we don't need to get so caught up in what's real and what's not. The truth is, everything on this earth is sort of an illusion, right? I'm not one of those people who believes we live in the Matrix, but I do think that everything, we're all living life from our own perspective, right? And if you feel like something really worked for you, then that's what you should be doing. And if you, whatever, I call it your spiritual palette, right? Whatever you pull from the spiritual world, whether it's indoctrined religion or it's what you just call spirituality, whatever it is that works for you, then that's part of your spiritual palette. And for me, and I bet you're going to say for you too, growing up as an artist, playing music, being an actor, I don't really separate art and spirituality, because for me, if I'm getting messages for songs, or if I'm getting messages of spiritual advice to give to someone, it's the same channel that it's coming through. So for me, it's the same thing. It's all messages from the God energy. And I try not to get not too hitched up on the technicalities of what comes from where and why. And I think that making art, being a creative person, looking at the lump of clay and seeing the statue, looking at the guitar and seeing a part, looking at a script and making a person come to life, those things are all extremely spiritual and extremely magic, right? Is it that way for you too? I mean, do you feel that the sort of God energy channel through you when you play the bass?
Well, yeah, and that is what led me to seek the rabbit hole that I am currently in. I've been in it for about a couple of years now, and it's quantum physics. Because every time that I ask for a question, on YouTube, online, whatever, it always turned me on to quantum physics or quantum physicists. And I'm talking about the relationship between sound, music, and healing. And you can break it down to even the frequencies, because that's sound, that's music. We are made out of sound. The whole universe is made out of waves. And waves, you got particles and you got waves. Waves turn into particles when you actually acknowledge that the wave exists. It turns into a particle.
Yeah.
And one of the things that really I find it fascinating is the fact that we as artists, we been given the most God-like, that God has shared with us, the act of creation.
Yes.
And when I say God, even though I'm Christian and I believe in manifestation,
Mm-hmm.
manifestation is, to me, is you must be able to, in order to believe, you must be able to manifest and to
Mm-hmm.
embrace and accept manifestation of
Yes.
of of your of your making your own reality.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
so for example, I'm just show you this instrument right here. This is particle,
Yeah.
right? But what do we do with it? We create waves. That's a wave. That's a sound,
Mm-hmm.
and it's amazing to me that we can actually take the frequencies, the sounds, and create music, things that you cannot actually hold. You cannot hold music in your hands. You can
Yeah.
hear it, you can feel it, you can resonate with it. You can have. Recently, I was watching the Beatles. Get Back, the documentary. And one of the things that I noticed throughout the whole thing was like, wait a minute. They start off the documentary in this huge movie production studio,
Okay.
right? But they are all in together in one. They're huddling. They are within feet from each other, right? Which means that their energy field is crossfading one into each other, each of
Yeah.
them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I started thinking, wait a minute, so I started going back to old photos of the Beatles when they were at the Cavern and at the Star Club, small
Yes.
stage, they were like within feet from each other, one small stage. By the time they got to Shea Stadium, they were playing a stadium, but they were still standing right next to each other. They
Sure.
did not separate, right? They understood they needed to feel, because people say, "Wow, how could they sound that great without monitors, without a PA system?" They were together. They could hear it from the energy that they were putting out,
Yes.
because they were cross-fading into each other, right?
Yes.
And so I started looking at all of that, and then I think, what? I did experience that. I Quiet Riot in 1983. We were opening up for ZZ Top,
Okay.
right? And
Awesome.
to watch, to watch a band every night because you happen to be on the same tour with them, it's like ZZ Top. That's really a gift because you can learn so much from that. One of the first things that I noticed is, wait a minute, these guys are playing on this huge stage, but you got Billy Gibbons and Dusty Hill, I'm sorry, Dusty Hills, right next to each other. They're standing right next to each other, right? Which means that the whole place is looking at one focal point. And you got the drums right behind them. So it's kind of like the
Mm-hmm.
same focal point. And to me, that is more effective than a bunch of guys running around the stage or going all over the place, because there's no focal point. You can hear it, but you're not gonna be able to resonate with that visually.
Right.
Visually, you're not focusing on anything really enough. Your eye might be glancing here, and then that guy is on fire over there, and then some guy's got pyro here, and so it's like, you
Right.
know
The
what I mean,
confetti cannon goes
yeah,
off. Right.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. One
Right.
thing that has really helped that lately with the major productions is the fact that nowadays, if you notice it, most musicians, they stand still in one area and they let the LED screens behind, the gigantic ones.
Right.
That's where the focus of the audience goes to,
Right.
not the guys playing on stage. And I'm talking about not the first few rows. I'm talking about playing in a stadium. You get that sense, and it only works right now because people are so used to going on their devices and experiencing things. You mentioned about not leaving home, staying
Mm.
home. Well, I'm in your home right now because
Hmm.
I'm looking at you and you're looking at me. You're in my home. We're in each other's home. So we have left
Exactly.
home.
Yeah.
We have really, you're talking about this is a thing called quantum entanglement. When you
Hmm.
get photons and you separate them and you put them like, opposite ends, like miles and miles, and they both react at the same time. Let's say if you and I and something like your dog is barking now, right? I'm miles away from you and I'm
Yes.
reacting to it at the
And you
same
can feel
time.
my dogs. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
right. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
love
Well,
dogs. So that to
but
me,
that's the
to me, that's
idea
music to my ear.
of never being really apart. So when I was 23, I moved to the San Fernando Valley from where I grew up in Huntington Beach, California. So, 45 minutes, but you get busy with your life and you're young. My mom and I talked almost every single day of our lives. I don't think we ever skipped a day, but we were only together not as often. I mean, I came down every couple of weeks and I saw her for a day, and sometimes I spent more time, but we weren't together every single day. But we were always together spiritually. We were always together. We heard each other's voices, right? So when she passed, I thought I was going to die without her on the earth. I thought I would just die too after she died. And I think I wandered around most of 2016 amazed that I was still alive. But I have realized in that time since she's been gone, almost 6 years now, next month, that our relationship now that she's passed is not all that different from when she was here, because it was always such a spiritual bond, and it was always based mostly on the phone, which is a very ethereal connection. And we still are very much in communication, and it's just not that different. And I think people spend so much time talking about grief and grieving, and certainly you do miss them on the earth always. But they're still with you, and there's just a very thin veil of separation between here and there, right? And if you've always had a very spiritual connection with somebody, that connection stays. And I find that with, cats that have passed, my dogs that have passed. I think we think of everything that's not happening with us as if we're not with somebody in person, we're not with them. And I hope that what's one of the things that's happened through this quarantine, and I always hope that in every tragedy there's gifts, right? And I believe there are, is that we've learned that we can FaceTime our relatives, we can call our friends, and we're still connected to them. Yet we've also had this time where there weren't a million things to do. I mean, I was somebody, and you probably were too, I was somebody that I'd have 5, 6 things every single day, places to go and people to see and things to do. And, I'd have 5 places to go on Christmas and 6 places I had to hit on Thanksgiving. And I was always running, 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 running. And I loved it. But it's been nice to have this time to spend some time inside of me and just have some time to figure out where the next phase of me is, and time for growth. And you were talking about phones earlier. I think that places to go and phones, and it's all distractions, right? So that we don't have to deal with what's going on inside of here, and inside of our hearts, which you can't see because the camera doesn't go, and inside of our souls, which to me are here. We need that time, right? You need that contemplative time with yourself to do your own spiritual work with yourself. And sometimes it's nice to have a little downtime. And some people just naturally give themselves a huge amount of downtime. I'm not that person. So this has been a nice time to give me time to not have to do all the running around. I mean, I see a lot of spiritual clients. I'm an interfaith minister and I'm very active with that. I'm doing radio shows and I'm doing this and I'm doing video broadcasts, but I don't have to always be somewhere and be distracted from what's going on inside of me. And I think if we thought of this time and used it as that, we would realize that in a way, this has been a very miracle time for the earth, for all of the tragedy that it's been. It's also been a beautiful thing, because I believe that spirit, God, delivers something wonderful oftentimes in the midst of something horrible, as in the death of my mother,
Yeah. One of the enlightenments or discoveries that I've had in this period that we're talking about, has been consciousness as the source of, in my story, the source of everything, the source of where I come from. I come
Right.
from my consciousness. Consciousness is the spirit. And if we, in my story, in my perception of things, is that there is a God consciousness that we come
Mm-hmm.
from. And our spirit is our consciousness. And at some point in our lives, we start to attract or attracted by, because they think it's mutual, people of similar consciousness, but you have to seek them. They're not, for example, I had to leave Florida when I was right after my teens, in my early 20s, and seek. I traveled all over the country to find the consciousness that I found in Los Angeles for music,
Yes.
Because that's what I decided. I want to be a professional musician. And so I traveled to LA and I joined this band called Quiet Riot, the Randy Rhoads version. And it was the first time that I was ever in a band that we had a collective consciousness.
Wow. Yeah.
We all like the same bands. We all like the same music. What the band was about, it was a mutual collective consciousness, right? And then Randy Rhoads went off to join Ozzy, and then later on he recommended me, and here I am again with Randy. We have the same consciousness, right? A little bit different from Ozzy's consciousness, because Ozzy was raised he was born right after World War II. He was raised in the rubble of the Blitzkrieg, because it took England a while to recover from World War II. So where he was living in Birmingham, England, doom and gloom, factories, was very industrial, rubble. Most of the buildings were bombed, and all of that. So that was at the core. I mean, if you listen to Black Sabbath, listen to the music, that can only come from a place like that,
Yes.
Whereas Randy and I was born in the Caribbean, raised in Miami, very sunny, very light, and Randy was born and raised in Burbank, California, just about the same thing, Florida, California. Right. So, we had the same consciousness about things that we like, things that our stories were very similar, our backgrounds, and so when he died, I lost that consciousness, that Quiet Riot consciousness. And then when I went in just to do one song for what a future record that actually became Mental Health, and this is 40 years ago this year, 40 years ago.
Wow.
I again walked into a studio, to not only play a song that was written for Randy, it's called Thunderbird, but also play with Frankie Benali, who he was the first musician that I found that we share the same collective consciousness. 10 years prior to that, I met Frankie 50 years ago this year, and we started playing, and he's the one who mentored me, in what the role of the bass player should be in a band.
Such a wonderful soul. I always loved having him on my radio show.
Incredible. Again, collective consciousness, Yeah. And he and I, and then Kevin, who I already have been playing with him in Quiet Riot with Randy, and then I play with him in his own band, Dubrow. I was living with Kevin right the day that I got the gig with Ozzy. I was living with Kevin Dubrow, and then I moved in with Ozzy and Sharon at their home. They invited me to come and stay with them, and so here I am again. That collective consciousness. Here we go, and I decided right after that session that I needed to go back home. I needed to go back to my family. And I left one of the biggest bands in the world, Ozzy, and I was treated incredibly well. But I needed to get that back in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, that happens, right? I mean, that's you had to, some healing needed to be done there, and also some feeling of that collective consciousness there.
Yeah,
Bands,
yeah.
being in a band is fascinating. If anybody who is watching has not been in a band, and the only thing I can liken it to is being in a play. You're all obviously creatives, but you're all very different, and your personalities are very different.
Yeah.
And you stand on a stage together and you think, how are we going to make this work? And then that universal energy comes in, right? And sort of works to cohesively make the song the thing, or the play the thing. And it's like you blink your eyes and it's done and the show's over. And sometimes you can't even remember what happened during that time, right? I mean, it really is a time where spirit comes through the channel and helps everything to be beautiful. And it's magic. It's the most magic thing.
I am blessed to have an experience that most musicians do not, and I would say some of them do, but not everybody gets to actually succeed in one of their first bands.
Yes.
Quiet Riot.
Yes,
because
exactly.
usually like let's say you put a band together and you're playing with your buddies and blah blah blah. The band breaks up. Everybody goes their different ways, and one guy gets married, one guy
right,
joins the army or whatever.
Right.
And
somebody becomes an accountant. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And you think like, wow, these are the guys that we all had that collective consciousness with.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
And then you carry on with your career, and you bring a big part of that consciousness, but it's not the same band anymore. It's like when Randy and I joined Ozzy. There was two guys from Quiet Riot in that band on stage, so that Quiet Riot consciousness, especially on the first Blizzard of Oz, on the first Ozzy record, Blizzard of Oz,
sure.
There was a lot of that musical consciousness was in there. And of course, Randy grew. He progressed from that on the second record. But on the first record was like, there's a lot of musicality that could have been, guitar riffs and so on. They could have been, Quiet Riot songs, and
right.
Yeah. So to actually me go back with the guys again, Frankie, I had been playing with him for 10 years. And then with Kevin, I have been playing with him for about 3 or 4 years at least, with between Quiet Riot and Dubrow. That's kind of like going back. It's kind of like putting the band together. Hey guys, let's put the band together again.
Yep. Putting the band back together.
Basically, that's what it was.
Yeah.
How many guys can actually say, let's put the band back together?
Yeah.
And then out of that, you get the first metal debut to go to #1 on Billboard charts.
Yeah.
It's like
amazing.
It was the first time that ever happened. Yeah.
But so now, right? You're playing with Quiet Riot again, and you have on and off for your years, right? Now it's so when you play now with Quiet Riot, Rudy, do you feel a little bit of the energy of everybody who's ever been in Quiet Riot kind of moves forward, right? Because Quiet Riot is almost its own entity, right? I think when living beings feed into something, whether it's a record, a band, a movie, that thing carries the energy of everyone who put anything into it. And I find with bands, it's not just the people that are currently in the band, it's also those that have ever been in the band. A little bit of their energy is in there.
As long as the initial collective consciousness does not get messed with, kind of like reinvent the wheel. If you go back to the source of what made that collectiveness, right? What made that successful. And it's really interesting that we're talking about this, because you can actually look at it and you say, you know what? We have a consciousness that maybe the masses or the industry is not ready for it yet. It's timing, cycles. I believe in cycles. This year I'm entering my 40-year cycle, or a cycle that's been working for the last 40 years. And it was working before that, but I was not aware of it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? There's cycles in life, and I'm at the point now that I can recognize them. And if you recognize them, then you can do what you should be doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's not about being opportunistic. It's about being on track, back on track.
Absolutely. Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's about And it's about listening to what Spirit has for you, right? It's okay if the message comes to you, right now is not the time to be in this band, or right now is not the time to pursue this project. It's I talk about this a lot during my interfaith sermons, that we as human beings, my mama used to say humans were just smart enough to be dangerous. We think we know because we're the top of the food chain, we think. And every time I say that, I always say a dolphin and an elephant smirk. But we believe we know better than Spirit. And when you learn to release and surrender and listen and be in service and make service your passion, the most wonderful things happen to you. And it's just a matter of, there are things in my life I never thought I would do. I never thought I would become an ordained minister, never had an urge to, never thought I would pastor at a church, not in a million years, not me. But one day I was in a Walmart parking lot and Spirit said, this is what you're doing now. And I said, okay, because just saying yes, right, to the most magical things, beautiful things happen for you that you never expected. And if you said, oh, no, I'm not going to do that, that's not for me, you throw away something beautiful that could be happening for you. And I think it's that way, especially like for you, right? Because you're getting offers all the time to play with different bands. And you know what when the answer is yes, and you know when the answer is not right now, and you know when the answer is not for me. And many of those messages come through from Spirit, right? From the God energy, says, this is a great idea. This one, not so much. This one, sure. If you can make the time, let's do it. And I think following that path, staying on your spiritual path, it eliminates a lot of that confusion and doubt and angst from your life, right? You're not always in turmoil. You're just waiting for things to kind of pop down in front of you. And you just kind of say yes.
Yeah, but I agree with you 1,000%. But the but meaning, to be clear about it, I wasn't able to do that, and so I really recognize the value of meditating, getting familiar with the question at hand,
sure,
or the offer at hand,
yeah,
and how it affects everybody around me, and so I've learned how to listen to my to the correct inner voice, because there's a few voices in there, and
they're not all the correct one.
Absolutely. And I used to anytime any voice will come up, I'm listening to it. I used to, not anymore. Now I question everything. I used to question people outside of my head. Now I question voices inside of my head. And it's gotten to a point that now they're not as loud as they used to be, because they know they're not gonna be influencing me anymore like that. That I'm going to really give it a lot of thought, and I've learned to do that through proper meditation. That's the only way that I can listen. I listen by not talking. Or not even thinking.
And what does meditation look like to you, Rudy? Because I think meditation looks different to everybody, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, everybody meditates in different ways. For me, it's just kind of leaving the channel open and having an open conversation with Spirit. For some people, it's very much doing the prayers. For some people, it's chanting. So what is it for you, Rudy? What does meditation look like for you?
Well, since you asked, I've been aware for decades about, without knowing what it was, how to activate my pineal gland, my
Oh,
third eye.
okay. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay, good. Yeah, beautiful.
And once I'm in that state, and I have to be in, not completely alone, but serene. I have to be in a serene environment.
Mm-hmm.
Then I can actually shut everything and just let it manifest itself. It's basically enlightenment. Enlightenment.
Mm-hmm.
I had my first experience with it. I was meditating. I was actually trying to meditate, and I got into that state, and I started feeling a vibration. I had my eyes closed, and this is about 45 years ago. I hear a sound. That's the first thing I acknowledged, is a sound. It
Oh,
was like
wow.
very high pitch.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's funny how it comes
About
through
that.
differently for everybody. For some
That
people,
was.
it's auditory. For
Are you
some, it's
there?
visual.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah. For you, it's an
You know what?
auditory
Yes, somebody called, and let me get the
thing.
audio.
That
iPhone.
place of
You should be
meditation
fine.
for you. As a musician, I'm not at all surprised, Rudy, that for you, that place is a place of audio, and not, and
I'm back.
because you're
Are
auditorily
there?
motivated, right? You're a musician, so it makes sense that for you, that meditative state comes with a sound.
You there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Because I
Can you
can't
hear
hear
me?
you for some reason. I don't
You
know
know
what
what?
happened.
Go out and come back in. I'm
Okay.
texting you. Yeah, meditation is interesting how it
Okay.
manifests differently for different people. Rudy, go out and come back in. Okay, we're having this. This is the first time I haven't dropped out. I'm having absolutely no technical problems today, and today Rudy's feeling it. So I just sent him a text. Can you hear me now?
Oh, okay.
Okay. Oh, I just told him. Okay, so he's going to go out, and then he's going to come back in, and then he'll probably be able to hear me. Great. For those of you who don't meditate, think about it. For those of you who are not working to manifest, think about it. For those of you who are not reticent to release and to surrender and to let spirit bring into you all the wonderful things that you've ever wanted, think about those things, because all of it works. Manifestation works, meditation works, calming the brain works, telling the monkey brain to stop chattering. Are you back? Can you hear me?
I am back. Monkey brain.
Monkey brain. Tell monkey brain to stop it. Monkey brain. Na, 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 na. And usually what monkey brain's telling you is not true. Monkey brain is full of crap.
Yeah, it's a monkey. I mean, I have a lot of respect for all creatures, but of course we're talking metaphorically.
Right. It's not really a monkey. It's just a chattering brain telling you things.
Exactly. I mean, this, do you want me to finish the story about the experience that I had? Yeah.
Please, yes.
Okay. And it's great because I finally got an answer. I finally learned what it is. But for years, for decades, it haunted me. Okay, so here I am. I'm laying in bed and I hear this sound and my eyes are closed. And I open my eyes. It's a really high-pitched buzzing sound. Like that, right? I open my eyes and there's right on top of my face, the best way I can describe it, because it floated, it was like a gyroscope spinning really fast. And it kind of like, the best way I can describe it is if you look at a fan, like an electric fan, and it's spinning really fast, and there's like a density in the center, and then it's got
Wow.
like energy around it,
Wow.
and it was so awesome in the word, like I was in awe of it, of that experience, that I just did not move because I did not want to disturb it, whatever it might be. And then it just floated, and it went from my head down my body to my toes, and then it projected itself on a wall. It was a white wall, so it was like a transparent energy.
Wow. Wow.
Visions of in 3D, because it would rotate, float, and then it took all the images, and it just went into a. It's not really an orb, because people say, I looked into orbs, and it's not the same experience, because people can see, it's a different look. It's actually an energy.
Beautiful.
And yeah, it's incredible. And then I became aware that if I activate my pineal gland, I can actually see them sometimes around me.
Isn't that nice?
In a room.
Sure.
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah.
But I did not understand what it was until I was going down my rabbit hole about a year and a half ago, and I ran into Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Oh, wonderful. Yes.
One of his lectures, he was talking about the same thing, because it evolved from actually seeing this energy into sacred geometry.
Yes.
I started seeing sacred geometry with color, gradients,
Beautiful.
right?
Beautiful.
And it would change colors, like it was like a gradient, like turning from red to yellow to green and all of that, right? And in one of his lectures, he explains that what your pineal gland is actually doing is scanning information that you're getting from the quantum field. You're being enlightened with this source of information, that the sacred geometry, because that's what sacred geometry is.
It's beautiful.
It's information.
It's so beautiful.
Created. I mean, like I can see is that you got one right behind you.
Yes, I do. Right, I bring it with me, sweetie.
Yeah.
We are completely out of time. I love and adore you. Let's do more of this, because you have so many wonderful spiritual things to share with the world, and I'd love to have you back. Will you do that?
Of course.
Where can people find you, honey, and learn more about what you're doing?
On social media.
Okay, do it.
Rudy Sarzo. If you see me with the little dog Willow, that's me.
I love that story. Thank you so much for being here, my friend.
You,
the
Sheena.
wonderful Rudy Sarzo. It's so wonderful to have my friends here. I want to share my tribe with you on this show. That's the fun of having a new show, is you get to reshare your tribe with people all over again.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sheena.
Thank you, my friend. If you're looking for information on this show or me, SheenaMetalExperience.com, my website, SheenaMetalSpiritual.com. Find me on social media everywhere. I'm just at Sheena Metal. Till I see you next week, next Friday at 3 o'clock Pacific time, right here on KGRA Digital Broadcasting. Seek peace, live in love, lead with kindness, embrace unity, always work to raise your vibration. Know I love you, and I'll see you next time. This is the Sheena Metal Experience. I'm, of course, Sheena Metal. It's my show, but it's your experience, and I'll see you next week, my friends.